So I'm in the area of LaGulf, South Carolina, and this is, I believe, the forest where in 2006, 14-year-old Elizabeth Shoaf was abducted right from her bus stop by a man named Vincent Filyaw. He posed as a police officer and actually arrested her, handcuffed her, and he led her into the woods where he had a bunker. I want to see if I can find any remnants of that bunker somewhere in this woods, but I'm definitely going to tell you the story while I'm looking. So as she got off the bus with her friends, they were walking down the road, walking home, and one of her friends, someone she knew, pulled up. All of the kids got into that car. She declined. She said, no, I'm just going to walk home. She wasn't far. And when she was pretty close to her house, I mean, pretty much within eyesight of her home, a man came out of the woods with fatigues on, a makeshift police uniform, and approached her and said something about marijuana and that she was under arrest. From there, he brought her deep into the woods here, brought her into that bunker. So Vincent was a 36-year-old deranged man, had major issues, obviously. He grew up in the woods, camping. He was a Boy Scout, always outdoors, doing outdoor things. He loved Rambo. I mean, I wouldn't say he was any kind of a survivalist, but he had some experience being in the woods and doing things. Before all of this happened, he was seeing a woman who had 3 kids, and in 2005, one of those children told their teacher that Vincent had been sexually assaulting her at 12 years old. There was a warrant that was issued for his arrest, and when the police came to his trailer, he escaped out some trapdoor tunnel, and then he was just out here in the woods, living out here. Now, from what I've read, he was staying out in the woods, but he would still sneak up and visit that woman from time to time. I don't know that this woman ever did anything about the fact that he was molesting her daughter. I don't know. But in any event, his plan, I believe, was to kidnap her, that young girl. But she had been taken by the state and put into a different home. So he obviously then needed someone else. That was his goal. And, you know, it's really disheartening and disconcerting about how these kids get off the bus every day at the same time, at the same place. And, you know, from an abductor's point of view, it in some ways makes things easy. As ridiculous and as scary as that is, it is the case. So he was armed with a taser and a handgun. He bought some handcuffs, even night vision goggles apparently, and his plan was to kidnap someone else. And he happened to, either he was watching these kids get off the bus every time, or he happened to just see them, but he must have been ready because he was already dressed like he was, like a pseudo police officer. He approached her from the woods, and then almost immediately, as soon as he handcuffed her, he then connected a chain or something around her neck, said it was a bomb, and she was captive at that point. She said that she could hear equipment, that she could hear trucks and things like that. There's a nearby quarry or something right here. And so I believe she had a pretty good idea of where she was, although he did walk her around to discombobulate her a little bit. But she was familiar with this area, so this bunker was no joke. This thing had a solar shower, propane gas stove, fireplace, had 12-volt power. As far as the size of it goes, I've heard different measurements, different accounts. I've heard 6 feet deep, I've heard 8 feet deep, 15 feet deep, and as much as 20 feet long with 2 entrances. So this was no small feat. I mean, this was quite an achievement, and he was full on living in there. I have no idea if the police came in here, and I'm sure somebody filled it in or something. But you know, it's always worth coming out to see, because maybe not. So sometime later, Elizabeth's mom, Madeline Shoaf, called the house to see if Elizabeth had made it home from school. And Elizabeth's brother said she hadn't returned yet. So then her mom called again around 4:30, only to learn that still Elizabeth was not home. And shortly after that is when she called the police. And fast forward some time, there was a missing persons bulletin that was put out. Searches were started, tracking dogs around through this forest, and they found nothing, no sign of her. Now, she had that collar on extremely tight. It was chained to a beam or something in that bunker. She said that she could hear the voices of the searchers, of the police, and at some point I even read that she could see the light and the shadows of the searchers through cracks in the hatchway. But somehow the police did not even notice that just a few feet below them was Elizabeth Shoaf. Now, amazingly, at some point, Elizabeth figured out that if she pretended to like her captor, that he was nicer to her, that he would treat her better. Eventually, he even removed the collar and chain around her neck, enabling her to freely walk around the bunker. Now, she couldn't leave. The bunker hatch actually had a lock on it, so she couldn't just bust out of there. Plus, Vincent had told her that he would kill her, that he would kill her family if she tried to escape. This looks incredibly unnatural here. But he began to really care about her and like her in his own mind. He began talking to her like a friend, telling her about his problems. He told her about how Kenshaw County accused him, quote unquote, falsely of molesting his stepdaughter. He began to show feelings for her, even telling her that he loved her, called her baby. And Elizabeth continued on with her plan to reciprocate and to act like she really liked him to gain his trust. Now, even though Elizabeth was free in the bunker, Vincent had told her about booby traps and bombs that he had planted around the outside of the bunker. So she was very afraid of those traps. Now, there was one night when he was sleeping that she did climb up the ladder very quietly and try to open that hatch, but she was unsuccessful. But like I said, he began to trust her more and more, eventually letting her use his phone because she wanted to play games on it. But in between those games, she would try to send text messages. Now, there was no cell service down in that bunker, so the text message would always come back as saying undeliverable or that it didn't go through. But apparently one of those texts did go through to her mother. At first, the police thought it was probably just a cruel joke, but then they traced the number and it came back to one Vincent Filyaw, who was already being pursued by police. They knew exactly who he was, and that phone pinged in the area where she said she was. She was fairly familiar with this area. I mean, it was only just within a half a mile or so from her own house. That evening, while watching the battery-powered TV, Vincent learned that in fact the police knew that he was Elizabeth's captor and that they were looking for him in this exact area. And although he was angry with Elizabeth because he knew about her sending the text, he asked her what should he do, and she suggested leaving to avoid being caught that she didn't want anything to happen to him, for him to be hurt or even killed, that she would leave the bunker at a later date and they would meet up and be together. And Vincent actually agreed to this, and he packed up and left that night. And that next morning, Elizabeth emerged from the bunker, but was still afraid that he was in the woods and that he would kill her if he saw her. But just then, she heard voices coming from the searchers. And finally, on the 10th day of her missing, she saw the approaching rescuers coming for her. So Elizabeth was rescued. For the first time in 10 days, she was taken out of that bunker and out of the woods, back to her family. And as for Vincent, police were actually able to find him because a woman called, said that he had, or somebody had attempted to carjack her, and so they found him on the road. Who knows what would have happened or what could have happened if he was successful with that carjacking. And he was imprisoned for, I believe it was over 400 years. I think 420 years or something like that in state prison. And he was actually found dead in his cell in 2021. So justice in some ways has certainly been served. Crazy situation. It's really quite astonishing, the type of people that are commingling with us in life. You never know what they're capable of or what their plan is in life. But I'm not really seeing anything. I think it could have certainly been where I was before. So in the end, this actually turned out to be just a walk in the woods. But it was worth seeing, worth checking to see what could still be out here. So there you go. That's the amazing story and how a 14-year-old outsmarted her captor to save her own life. Because I sincerely believe that if she didn't have that way of thinking, that smart way of thinking, she would probably not be here today. All right. All right, I'm gonna go cool off because I am hot and sweaty. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.